In part one, Dr. Ned gave us an amazing masterclass. In part two, we're going to be looking at some of the other characteristics that appear alongside the traits of ADHD and start to unscramble it and start to talk about what parents, what teachers, what educators can do to make the most of those with these symptoms. Dr. Ned, thank you so much. I'm still reeling from all I learned
thank you so much.
In part one. But you touched on more than one occasion in part one about the links with trauma. It seems cruel that the focus on those with ADHD is all about the things that they don't do correctly.
Yes.
But alongside that is the huge upsides we've talked about. And I also want to delve into the overlap with trauma, the neuroscience behind that, and why is it that a background of high levels of adverse childhood experiences often shows up with symptoms of ADHD. Tell us what you know about this.
Well, the bottom line is we don't know about it, other than a lot of statistical associations. But you think about it, both groups are loaded. I mean, the parent and the child. If the child has ADD, the child is more provocative, more likely to be abused, mistreated. And the genetics, if you're an adult with ADD, it's more likely you'll give birth to a child who has, and that you yourself have poor impulse control. So each group, the offspring and the parents, are statistically loaded to produce trauma. That's just a numbers game.
You've got an analogy, something to do with Ferrari engine?
Oh yes. My analogy for ADD is like you're born with a Ferrari engine for a brain. You're born with a race car for a brain. Tremendous power, tremendous pizzazz. And the problem is with this masterful brain that you've got so much power, you've got bicycle brakes.
Yeah.
So you got this race car brain with bicycle brakes. And unless you do something about that, you're going to have accident after accident and maybe even perish. So the goal in, I don't even like the word treating, but the goal in learning how to bring out the best in ADD is learning how to strengthen your brakes.
Yeah.
And increase your ability to inhibit. Russ Barkley, one of the great researchers in the field, says ADD is essentially a state of relative disinhibition. It's like you've had a few cocktails or something, and the goal is not to get rid of that disinhibited state, but to have some control over it.
Yeah.
So you still want your Ferrari to go 100 miles an hour when it wants to, when it should, but you want it to be able to slow down to 0 when it comes to a stoplight.
Yeah.
And as it is now, it doesn't do that. I mean, even a stop sign, it's so classic. You come to a stop sign, you've got ADD. You see the stop sign. It registers on your occipital cortex. You see it, all your visual machinery is working perfectly.
Yeah.
You just don't comprehend it.
Yeah.
You see it, but you don't turn it into meaning. Yeah. So you don't stop. Yeah. You just drive along, oh, look at that nice stop sign, and right through it. And you could crash and burn and die, so it's high stakes poker, learning how to strengthen your brakes if you want to make use of the great talent you've been given. If you want to turn that Ferrari engine into a champion. Yeah. Another analogy I really like, imagine Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls in the United States is this incredible, just wonder of the world of energy. And these, if you've never been, you should go. It's incredible to see the amount of water that's pouring over, and it's just a huge amount of potential energy and noise and mist until you build a hydroelectric plant. Then you turn all that noise and mist and energy into lighting up the state of New York.
Yeah.
You capture the useful part of what is otherwise just a spectacle of noise and beauty and mist. I'm in the hydroelectric plant business.
I love it.
I'm trying to help people find and build their hydroelectric plant. How do I turn all this, what can be viewed by other people as disruptive, annoying, obnoxious, subversive, throw in whatever adjective you want, how do we turn that first of all, see the goodness in it, the utility in it, and turn it into something that in fact is useful. And there's not a recipe for that, but it does begin with following your curiosity and having a boss or a teacher that doesn't get in the way of that. It doesn't say that's off topic. Come back to the. 'Cause most of the great discoveries are off topic. They were not. They were not intended. They just happened
out of the box.
So you want to. On the other hand, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying every learning environment or every work environment should be chaotic. Although chaotic has its pluses. You got to have some structure. And people with ADD often pull back, bristle against that. By the way, you notice I still use the term ADD, but I can't get over it. But they bristle at that because we hate to be told what to do. We hate to be constrained, confined. We buckle at that. So you often get pushback. But I say to them, look, and because they say it inhibits my creativity. I say, look at Shakespeare and Handel, two of the greatest geniuses who ever lived. And look at their work, Handel's music, Shakespeare's poetry. The most structured forms you could imagine. Very Shakespeare, iambic pentameter, da 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 da, and Handel these very intricate, passages that are highly structured, but within that structure, each of them created infinite variety. So structure potentiates creativity. It doesn't inhibit it.
Wow. So you're as a psychiatrist, you know that the go-to answer for ADHD is medication, and very often it's absolutely critical to give that. But is that just part of the story? I mean, you're obviously advocating.
This is my medication right here. It's called caffeine. But medication is unfortunately has become a very controversial part of. First of all, medication is never necessary. It's never like insulin for a diabetic. Never. It does for you what eyeglasses do for someone who's nearsighted. Now, you would say eyeglasses are necessary too. And, it is in fact true that you could correct nearsightedness by squinting properly. That most people are not wanting to do that, the exercise of learning to strengthen your eye muscles. But medication, when it's used properly, can be a godsend, just as eyeglasses are for someone who's nearsighted, but not necessary. And for some reason, it's become very controversial. And like everything in the United States, the red state and blue state, it's all about opposition, and often hostile opposition, and often rooted in ignorance. All the time, new patient will say to me, or someone will say to me, do you believe in medication? And my answer is, it's not a religious principle. It's not a matter of believing in it. It's a scientific, question that has been investigated and researched many, many, many times. Do you know the first time medication was used to treat what we now call ADHD? When was that? 1937.
Wow.
Most people think it's something new. It's not new at all. It goes back to, very few medications go back that far. But I neither push it nor deny it. I in my philosophy is do whatever works, as long as it's safe and it's legal. And if there's a chicken soup that some grandmother in Minnesota makes, maybe that'll help ADD. So I'm very. Problem with my profession and people in general is they get wedded to one approach, and they get very rigid about it. And often other factors are thrown in, and the rules that you have to follow, and so on and so forth. You don't want that to happen. Science by its nature is open-ended. Try whatever works, and it just happens that medication with ADD is a tool that can create tremendous benefit. However, it doesn't. It's the changes it creates are not permanent. Whereas the cerebellar stimulation approach is permanent.
So we met 23 years ago to talk exactly about, are there other things that would be complementary, that would deal with the root cause, so tell us your experience from that first discussion that we had, and to what extent has it added new tools to your toolbox?
Oh, it's completely revolutionary. I mean, when I first heard about when you came to visit me, this woman brought you to see me, and she said he has a way of helping ADD using only physical exercise. Mm-hmm. I said, "What? I mean, you can't teach, you can't help with attentional problems by doing exercise." She said, "Well, yes, you can." So I said, "Okay, let me learn about it. I'm nothing if not open-minded." Mm. And lo and behold, it made perfect sense that you're stimulating a part of the brain called the cerebellum at the base and the back of the brain that throughout until recently was neglected. When I was in medical school, the only thing they talked about the cerebellum was that it controlled balance and coordination and automaticity. But then this guy, Jeremy Schmallman at Mass General, found connections, rich connections from the cerebellum to the front of the brain where the action is in ADD, structure, organization, and not only that, impulse control and mood. Mood is a big factor in this condition. So for some reason, and this is where the I don't know comes in, stimulating the cerebellum, taking advantage of its connection to the front of the brain, brings about permanent changes in the front of the brain. Yeah. That's just so cool. And I don't care that I can't explain why. All I care is that it works. Suddenly you've got stronger brakes. Yeah. Suddenly you can win races instead of crashing into telephone poles.
And in the cases of your son, Jack, it dealt with another symptom that people don't talk about. Many people with ADHD symptoms don't enjoy reading. They don't find it easy.
Jack, it pertains to me too. Jack, when he was about 12, 13 years old, could read, but he hated to read. Yeah. It was like, getting him to make his bed or something. He hated to read. Yeah. And my wife had the problem of driving over curbs and getting flat tires. So you proposed, well, why don't they both do the program? And they said, okay, and it's much easier, by the way, to get someone to do it if he's doing it with someone, like his mother or what have you. Yeah. So they did the program, and in 3 months, Jack stopped hating to read. He could read, but he stopped hating to read, so he didn't avoid it like the plague. And Sue hasn't driven over a curb since.
So that's 23 years ago. Yeah, so it's lasting.
Oh, it's so lasting, and it's so convincing to me. I wish I'd done it when I was Jack's age, because I am a terrible reader, and I think if I'd had the program back then, it wouldn't be. Here I am, a man of words who is horrible at reading. And my wife says, I don't know how you know anything. It's so hard for me to get through a book. I write more books than I read. I mean, it's really embarrassing. But to me, it's magical. Magical just means we can't explain it. But it's so wonderful that your group discovered it. That there is this association between stimulating this remote part of the brain. Yeah. And taking advantage of the connections to the front of the brain and bringing about change in abilities that were considered completely unrelated to the cerebellum. So by stimulating the cerebellum, you get better at organization, planning, focus, and mood. Mood is a big, and Jeremy Schmallman at Mass General, who pioneered the work with the cerebellum, there are syndromes that if you injure your cerebellum, say through stroke or physical injury or oxygen deprivation, if you infarct part of the cerebellum, you get syndromes that look exactly like ADD. And in fact, one of them is called Schmallman syndrome. Wow. Yeah, and so it's now proven, there's no doubt about it, that the cerebellum is intimately related to what we call ADHD, and stimulating the cerebellum will bring about improvement in those symptoms with no medication involved whatsoever. A common misconception is, people think they have to take medication. That's why they don't want to come for treatment, because they don't want to take medication. It's completely wrong. Yeah. You positively can treat it. In fact, if you just used I still call it the door method, along with meditation, proper nutrition, and a setting where you were treated well. That would take care of your ADD without medication whatsoever. A few years ago, I treated a little boy in Shanghai. I'd gone over there to give a lecture.
Yeah.
And this mother came up to me and said, "You got to treat my son, 10 years old." I said, "I can't do that. I'm 7,000 miles away."
Yeah.
She said, "I don't care. We can use the internet." So I said, "All right." And she said, and I don't want to use medication. I said, "Well, that's all right. I'm not licensed in Shanghai anyway."
Yeah.
And so we embarked on what I thought would be a futile experiment because he's so far away. Well, this mom did exactly what I told her to do, which is unusual in itself, and began by creating a loving environment. People don't realize how much emotion is part of the issue. If you feel afraid, you're not going to learn anywhere near as easily as if you're as if you feel safe. So first you create that environment, and then you give him a model. The little boy, his name was Boots. You give him a model of the race car brain and the bicycle brakes, and you say, "Boots, you're way smart, but you're having trouble because your brain is a race car and you don't have any brakes to control it."
Yeah.
And they all smile because they get it. They get it. It makes immediate sense. But we have a way of strengthening your brakes.
Yeah.
And the way you've been taught so far is just to try harder. Well, telling someone to try harder who has ADD is no more helpful than telling someone who's nearsighted to squint harder.
Yeah.
It really doesn't do the trick. So we set off, and I gave Boots's mom a set of exercises that I invented by my work with you. They weren't your set of exercises. I just made them up. But it was things like standing on one leg, standing on one leg with your eyes closed, standing on a wobble board, sitting on an exercise ball with your feet off the floor. A bunch of exercises that I stole really from you. And Mom, it was a minimal amount of equipment. She went and got them. Well, this boy, when he started the year, was the bottom of his class in every way: behavior, academics, mood. He was about to be written off as a lost cause. And in China, that's not good. Well, come Christmas, just of giving him a metaphor and a loving environment and the exercises every day, that boy was number one in his class. By Christmas, by 3 months. Number one in academics and number one in behavior. No more disruption. No more trouble learning, and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, playing soccer or whatever you call it, football, really well. And he brought home, the prize they gave him was a chocolate. And he brought it home and he said to Mom, look what I won for being the best boy in the class. And she said, "Oh, let's eat it together." And he said, "Oh, no." And he placed the chocolate on the mantelpiece. "This is far too precious to eat." And this little boy, life was transformed. Well,
look, you're giving so much hope to parents and teachers listening right now.
It's real hope.
You should mention that all of what you're talking about is now built into the Hallowell Brain Health Program.
Yes,
because you've taken the step of watching what's happened, learning about a completely new approach, something that addresses all of the things that you care about. You care about the strengths. You care about the fact that some miss out on not enjoying reading. You care about the fact that so many have experienced trauma. And you're saying there are some common root causes, and there's another way of creating mental strength that can address these. So tell us why you did that.
Well, first of all, I didn't do that because I'm unable to. But until I met you and then John McGuire, who are able to business their way out of a paperback, which I can't do, then we were able to package it and present it as Hallowell Brain Health. I couldn't do that. I'd still be scribbling things on a piece of paper. But fortunately, the grace of God, I met the two of you, and you knew how to do this. It's a skill set I just don't have. In fact, I muck it up. It's pathetic watching me try to administer. So I had created the new cutting edge way of approaching it, and metaphors and whatnot. And then you guys took it and put it in a form that the general public could A, afford, and B, use. and it's marvelous to see. Now we're left with the job of marketing, and another thing that I'm not good at. But I believe that the power of this to change lives is so strong. It should, particularly with the two of you behind it, should.
And it's not an expensive program.
No.
But I want to give you a challenge, Dr. Ned.
Yes.
There's a lot of people here that they'd find this is what you're promoting is actually far cheaper than anything else they've tried.
Absolutely.
So it's not going to hurt them financially.
Absolutely.
But there are going to be some families who are saying, I can't afford anything. I'm up to here. The economy is so bad. I've lost my job, or whatever it is. If you do this every day between now and Christmas Day, we will give 100 programs to you to give to those families who contact you and say, look, I genuinely can't afford it. So my challenge to you is, I think you would love it, because so many, we're both seniors now, and seniors are benefiting so much from this. If you did that, there will be 100 programs for you to gift to those who come to you and say, I want this, I simply can't afford it.
That'd be wonderful,
You said you need a purpose, or I've forgotten the
mission.
word. You need a mission.
Yep.
I'm offering you a mission.
Well, Winford, I accept.
Do we shake on this?
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it is so life-changing, and people don't realize, most people are still stuck in this smart, stupid model, and the solution is try harder, maybe get a tutor. And that's just so obsolete, and we're so much more advanced than smart and stupid, and we have so much more to offer than a tutor. And actually, we have what I call a coach, a term I invented myself. A coach is pretty much someone who does what your mother used to do minus the nag factor. So someone to help you, remind you, keep you on track. People say, you should do that for yourself. No, we can't. I have more coaches than I've got fingers. I forget, I overlook, I leave this unpaid bill, or I leave my car running when I leave it. I mean, and that doesn't mean I'm stupid. It does mean I'm challenged in some very serious ways that I better learn how to take care of. And the old model, I mean, there's still, in fact, I would say the preponderance of children out there who are beaten regularly because they're not able to do these things. And I don't know how many of you in this country, probably most of you, have read Captain Underpants. It's this phenomenally successful cartoon series. Dave Pilkey is the man who writes it. It sold over 200 million copies.
Wow.
I mean, it's unbelievable, the sales of his books. At least in the U.S., every 8-year-old, 10-year-old boy has a captain. Anyway, Dave Pilkey has both ADD and dyslexia.
Yeah, of course.
And when he was in school, he went to a Lutheran school in Ohio. Every day, or almost every day, he was beaten all the way through high school. And the reason was he could make people laugh. And he liked to draw. Well, the beatings didn't beat that out of him, and now he's made a fortune, showing kids. And the main character in Captain Underpants has both ADD and dyslexia, and it gives these conditions the kind of positive reputation they should have.
In the UK, some parents are having to wait 3 or even 4 years just for a diagnosis.
That's insane.
Now, I'm not against diagnosis,
no,
although the diagnosis itself doesn't actually take you forward.
No.
What would you advise those parents? Is there one of your books that you would point them to?
Absolutely. They could get my last book, which has the distinct advantage over my other 22 books of being short. It's only 100 pages long. And
it's an amazing book. I've read it.
People with ADD don't like anything long. So it's called ADHD 2.0. And in that book, there is everything you need to do it yourself.
Wow.
And the book costs $10, $12. If you take that book and implement the suggestions in it, you don't need a doctor unless you want to use medication. Then you just need a doctor who's willing to prescribe. And it's very simple, so you do. And your system over here makes it so difficult. But as I said, you don't even need medication. You don't need it. If you do your program, and if you build in getting enough sleep, eating properly, meditation, and positive human contact. That's the one that always gets left out, even though it's probably the most important. Having a loving environment versus a hostile, abusive environment.
Yeah.
Is totally game changing.
Now, Dr. Ned, teacher training in the main includes very little or sometimes nothing about ADHD or even dyslexia, very, very little. What's your view on what should happen in the education system? And part two of that question is, I'm a teacher, what should I read of your books? Because I need a thorough grounding and understanding of this.
Well, ADHD 2.0 will tell
Again,
all you really need. I mean, I've written books on other topics too, and they're valuable. I mean, if I were to give you a second recommendation, it wouldn't be about ADD. It would be a book called The Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness.
And is that about trauma and adverse childhood?
No. It's about the best way to raise children.
Wow.
What does every parent want for their child? They want them to grow up to be happy.
Yeah.
That's the word they always use.
Yeah.
And then it's successful, blah, 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 but happy.
Yeah.
The childhood roots of adult happiness. And you ask them, okay, what's your plan to get there?
Yeah.
They have no clue. And what they usually do is what was done to them, or the opposite of what was done to them, and what their peers are doing. And that's, so when we started having children some 30 years ago, I wanted a better, and here I was a child psychiatrist, and I had no idea about how to promote happiness. I knew everything about how to intervene when there was misery, but I didn't know about how to promote joy. Well, this book shows the steps that you need to go through. There's 5 steps. The first one is connection. The second one is play. The third one is practice. The fourth one is enjoy some degree of mastery. The fifth one is recognition, which takes you back to connection. You put someone in that cycle, what I call the cycle of excellence, they will thrive. If you don't, then sort of on their own, they might not. But with the ADD, the risks are tremendous if you don't have some kind of program of being in the prison population, the addicted population, the unemployed, just the downright underachieving, frustrated population. So it's there for the taking if you'll take it. And I'm not here to sell my books, but that particular book, ADHD 2.0, and The Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness would be the 2 I'd recommend.
Ned, we've not talked too much about trauma, but you keep on dropping hints that the overlap between trauma and symptoms of ADHD is very significant. Have you actually built anything into the Hallowell Brain Health app that addresses that?
Absolutely. First of all, the Hallowell Brain Health app, you say the long wait for a diagnosis in the UK, you can make it immediately if you get the app. I mean, and
what,
it has,
today?
Yeah, if you access the app today, you can know within half an hour if you have ADD. And contrary to most people's belief, you don't need psych testing. I mean, you can get it. It's very interesting and very, but it really is a matter of your history. Do you have a history of the following issues? Yeah. And the brain app, the Hallowell Brain Health app, has all of the standard instruments built into it.
Wow.
So you get exactly what you would get if you went to a UK doctor having waited 3 years, only better, because it's a lot more user-friendly.
And I do know it has all the references to strengths as well, which most people ignore on
exactly. It's built around my whole strength-based philosophy, where we're not trying to diagnose a disability or disorder. We're trying to offer you a description of how your brain works, along with some methods of how to get the most mileage out of it.
You know, you're giving massive hope to people that had no hope before the start of this series.
I sure hope so, because because this is a place where hope is really legitimately warranted, and where the lack of hope, the cost is tremendous.
Yeah.
You mentioned trauma. It's only the natural next step. If you have poor impulse control, that you will traumatize or be traumatized, you know, that you will perpetrate or be perpetrated upon, that you will overlook. I mean, just the simple act of neglect. And it's not even malicious. You simply forget and overlook. You leave your kid sitting on the roof of the car and drive away. You forget that you left the burner on, the house burns down. The kid, you don't tell the kid if you jump out the window, you can't fly. So he jumps out the window trying to fly. I mean, you know, the relationship between trauma and ADD is obvious and manyfold, without malice, without a desire to hurt. Quite the opposite. It's just overlooking that we do can end up in trauma. But getting out of it, I came from a highly traumatic, and this is objectively speaking, childhood, and I didn't take any medication. The medication I found was other adults who liked me and who stimulated my curiosity. So you don't need an expensive doctor. You don't need medication. You don't need all the things that are inaccessible. And this app, thanks to John, put together, takes everything that I've created over my 40 years of doing this, and it's right there. It's right there. And I'm not a good marketer, so I haven't. But
so you're talking about Hallowell Brain Health.
Yes,
so
yes.
folk can find that on hallowellbrainhealth.com.
Absolutely, and it's not expensive, and it will do for you what probably better than the average doctor you would see.
Wow.
Because it has built into it all the stuff that I've developed. Not only it's stuff from the standard sources like the DSM-5 or the pharmacology manual. So it's not like me, on my own inventing it's my collecting the best from all the other sources and then adding to it my strength-based approach, which says you don't have a deficit disorder, you have an unwrapped gift, and then this is how you unwrap it. So I'm so proud of it, even though I didn't create it, John McGuire did, but and with your assistance as well. I mean, that's what it takes. It takes a team effort where each person is contributing what they're good at contributing.
Ned, you've given so many people amazing hope, and in your career, I can't thank you enough for all you have done for those that have got these issues.
Thank you.
There is one more book of yours I want to mention, and that's ADHD Explained. It's a little book. If you're short of time, do get that.
And it's a picture book. It's easy. It's for adults, but it's a lot of pictures.
And it's on Amazon.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the company that published it for various reasons lost interest in publicizing it, so it never got the publicity it deserves. But the night is young. We can still bring it to people.
Let's put that right. Let's give all these folk hope that there's so much positivity to explore and look forward to.
Absolutely, and you don't have to be wealthy to get it at all. It's right there for the taking.
Dr. Hallowell, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Winford.
I wish you all the best.